answered the question that I thought I heard.
What question did you think you heard?
Was there an altercation that happened inside the bar?
Did you see an altercation in the bar?
No.
And is that how you testified here today?
Yes, ma'am.
And yesterday?
Yes, ma'am.
You were shown a whole bunch of pictures of what happened right after Sam Foltz was hit by the defendant, and asked whether or not you could identify yourself in the photographs when you were being cross-examined. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and there's no question that is there any question that you fell? Did you fall?
I fell. That is not a question.
Okay, and you described the time that you fell kind of as a tornado.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
object to all the leading.
And I'm not leading, I'm setting up a question.
Yeah, I overrule objection.
Can you tell the jury whether or not that photograph looked like a tornado?
Absolutely. I couldn't make anything out of it.
I also would like to ask you a couple. Are you familiar with him?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you known him?
When I was in elementary school.
Okay, so you've known him for a real long time.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of person is he?
Sweet, sweet boy. So caring. Sometimes quiet, but when you get to know him, very fun, loving.
Does he start fights?
Absolutely not.
Does he care about Emma?
Very much so.
Have you ever known him to do anything that would hurt Emma?
Absolutely not.
Have you ever known him to do anything that would hurt anybody else?
Never.
No further questions.
Those are my questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Watch your step, Ms. Barber, as you're stepping down.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Take your turn. Okay, is the state ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's next witness is Sam Foltz.
Sam Foltz.
Sir, if you would, raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning, Mr. Foltz. Could you please state your full name for the record?
Samuel Sidney Folks,
And could you spell your middle name for the court reporter?
Sidney.
Mr. Foltz, how old are you?
I am 25.
And did you grow up in the Nashville, I guess Franklin, Williamson County area?
More Franklin than Nashville, yes, ma'am.
Currently, what do you do?
I coach high school baseball and finishing up a second degree at the University of Tennessee at Martin.
And in 2019, what were you doing then?
Playing college baseball.
Where did you play baseball at?
The University of Tennessee at Martin.
And prior to that, where did you go to high school?
Battleground Academy.
And did you know Clay Beathard and Paul Trapini?
Yes, ma'am.
How long had you known Paul Trapini?
Paul Trapini, I met him in 8th grade when I came over to BGA.
And can you describe Paul? What type of person was he?
Oh, Paul was different, really. He was very outgoing, goofy, smart, probably too smart for his own good. Very witty, liked to joke around a lot. He was able to take a serious situation and make it more relaxing for everybody. So it was nice to always have Paul around.
And was Paul the type of person that would pick a fight?
No, ma'am.
And had you ever seen Paul with a weapon before?
No, ma'am.
And Clay Beathard, did you know him?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you describe Mr. Beathard?
Loyal, funny, can never really make up his mind most of the time. He's just always had everybody's back. He was a leader. Everybody wanted to be like Clay, so he's just probably the best person to know.
And how long had you known Clay?
I knew Clay from Pee Wee football when we were 7 or 8, and then kind of fell apart, went to different places, and we met back up at BGA at 8th grade.
And can you describe Clay? Is he the type of person that would pick a fight?
No, ma'am.
And had you ever seen him with a weapon before?
No, ma'am.
And your kind of other friend group, you went out with a group of friends on that December 20th of 2019, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And kind of talking about some of the other people in the group, can you describe Wilson McCullough?
Wilson, very relaxed, kind of minded his own a lot. He was always there if you needed him. He was probably one of the better persons to go to just because he always had a calm and relaxed mindset about everything. He was easy to talk to, funny, always had a smile. You know, I never really saw him upset ever. So he's just a good person to be around.
And what about his demeanor? Was he the type of person that would pick a fight?
No, ma'am.
And had you ever seen him with a weapon?
No, ma'am.
And AJ Bethram, do you know him?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have you known Mr. Bethram?
Since 8th grade.
And what type of person is AJ? Can you describe him?
Smart, funny, redneck, outgoing. That's just pretty much AJ, you know.
And is Mr. Bethram, is he the type of person that would pick a fight?
No, ma'am.
And have you ever seen him with a weapon?
No, ma'am.
And I want to draw your attention to that night. What do you remember doing that night? Kind of how did that evening start?
We went over to the Mccullough's house. Clay had come over to the house for a little bit.
Come over to your house?
Yes, ma'am. Because we haven't seen him in a while, and he wanted to see my parents. And so we started off there, and then we just went over to Mccullough's, and then met up with the boys of the group, and the girls came over. And then we went to Nashville. Planned on going to Broadway, changed plans, ended up going to Midtown.
And do you remember the first place that you went?
Kung Fu.
And how long did you guys stay there?
Maybe 10 minutes, 15, if that.
And what did you do after you went to Kung Fu?
We went to Dogwood.
And is that a place that you had ever been to before?
No, ma'am.
And can you describe the mood at Dogwood Bar?
Just kind of typical, you know, bar setting. Everybody drinking, laughing, having a good time.
Do you remember anything specific happening inside the Dogwood Bar before you left? Which I guess, did anything happen related to Emma Yoder when she was on the dance floor that you remember?
Yes, she was approached by a man, kind of aggressively, and she kind of, you know, said something about it, and kind of stepped in, asked him to step away. She doesn't want to be bothered or anything, and then that was about it.
And so when you said that she said something, did she say something to the man that was kind of coming up to her aggressively?
It was more towards us, like you could just see in her facial expressions that she needed help.
And I guess describe Emma. How long have you known her?
I've known her since 8th grade.
And you described her as her kind of facial expressions. Do you have the relationship where you can kind of tell her mood by the way that she looks?
Usually, yes, ma'am.
And have you and Miss Yoder ever dated?
No, ma'am.
At the time that that happened, did you think it was significant?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, when the man approached her, did you think it was a significant event that you needed to commit to memory and remember every detail of it?
No, ma'am.
Would you recognize the person if you saw them again that approached Miss Yoder in the bar?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you could point them out and describe what they are wearing.
They're wearing a gray jacket with a brown zipper.
And you kind of pointed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's the man that approached her on the dance floor.
Yes, ma'am.
And did that happen one time or more than once that you saw?
One time that I remember.
Okay. And after that happened, I guess, do you remember being in the bar and hanging out with your friends.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you remember a time where you interacted with the person that you identified, Mr. Michael Mosely?
Yes, ma'am.
And I am going to ask to be able to play a portion of Exhibit 11 file folder that is labeled 11. This is at the 8-minute mark. Mr. Foltz, if you can look at this image.
Give us just a second, General.
Yes. When it appears on your screen.
Okay.
Mr. Foltz, do you see yourself in this image?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you touch the screen, it should make a mark. And can you touch the screen where you are?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see other people in your group in that picture?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you touch the screen and just kind of describe who's who?
This is Wilson McCullough. I believe this is David Bates. This is Paul Trapini, Campbell Parker. This would be Clay Bethard. This would be Emma Yoder. And this is Toby Favre.
And the person between Mr. Parker and Miss Favre, do you recognize him?
I believe that's AJ Bethurham.
I have pressed play. Mr. Foltz, do you remember kind of this moment of what's going on?
No, ma'am.
Were you able to hear anything that Wilson McCullough was saying?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Foltz, do you remember this part of the evening?
A little bit, yes, ma'am.
And can you describe what you remember?
I remember us leaving, getting our Ubers to go back home, and Mr. Mosely was making unwanted movements towards Emma, so I had stepped in and said, "Hey, we're leaving. There's no time for this," and that's when we walked out.
Do you recall, did you say anything related to her having a boyfriend?
Yes, I said I was her boyfriend at the time, knowing that she had one back in Colorado where she went to college.
Okay, so you and Miss Yoder weren't dating, but you did know that she had a boyfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say anything threatening to Mr. Mosely?
No, ma'am.
And I am going to play another image, which is Exhibit 11, file folder number 10. Mr. Foltz, do you recognize what's in this video?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
And at any point, did you say anything to Mr. Mosely or any of the people that he was with?
No, ma'am.
I am now playing what is Exhibit 11, file folder 12. Mr. Folks, do you recognize what is shown in this video?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you able to see yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there actually a red circle that's around you?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you remember this incident?
For the most part, yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Mosely is now near you. Do you remember what, if anything, was said between the two of you?
I do not.
Do you remember what is being shown right now? Would you like me to back it up?
Towards the end, I do remember.
Mr. Folks, what do you remember happening?
I remember being outside waiting for everybody to leave the bar, just because we had multiple Ubers coming, just because we had such a big group and people were going to different places. And I was waiting for everybody to get outside before we made the final arrangement. Mr. Mosely approached. I didn't really see him, honestly. Then all of a sudden, I was hit into that car.
And do you remember how many times you were hit?
No, ma'am.
And can you describe how it felt after you were hit?
I didn't feel it until later on.
And what did you feel later on?
Just a throbbing pain on the right side or right or left side of my face.
Which it shows that at some point that you go across the street. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see anything happening related to Clay or Paul when you ran across the street?
No, ma'am.
Did you see anybody that had any weapons?
No, ma'am.
At any point, did you hear anything about anybody being armed or having a weapon?
No, ma'am.
Which, were you able to see that you kind of run, I guess, towards the right of the screen on the other side of the street? Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you describe what were you doing?
I was just kind of telling him to get out of here. That, there was no reason for a fight. Or
Did
anything.
you know what had happened to Clay, Paul, or AJ at that point?
No, ma'am.
And when you went after them, did you ever catch up to Mr. Mosely?
No, ma'am.
Did you see him leave the area?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you see?
I just remember seeing a black car that he got in and left.
Do you remember what kind of car it was?
No, ma'am.
And you said it was black.
Yes, ma'am.
So it wasn't a red car, is that right?
That I remember. I thought it was black.
Okay. And did you say anything to him at that point?
No, ma'am.
When was the first time that you knew that something had happened to your friends?
When I came back, I can't remember exactly who approached me, but they said that Clay had been stabbed.
And did you see Clay that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe that?
He was just laying there, holding his side, blood coming into his white jacket, and that's about it.
Was he able to talk?
No, ma'am.
And what about Paul? Did you see Paul?
No, ma'am.
Did you see AJ?
No, ma'am.
I could have just one moment. Thank you, Mr. Folks. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Quillen?
Mr. Folks, how tall are you?
5'9" and 3/4.
5'9", 3/4. And Paul Trapani would be 2 inches taller than you, more or less, or would have been?
He's probably 6 foot, 6'1".
Okay. And Mr. Beathard, maybe 3 or 4 inches taller?
He's about 6'2". Yes, sir.
Okay. And Alva Bethurum's the tallest of that group, correct?
Yes, sir.
About 6'3", maybe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And regarding your relationship with Mr. Beathard, I found a picture where you appear to be about 14 with your arm around Mr. Bethard in football uniforms. So I assume you played football together, correct?
Yes, sir.
Was that through high school?
To my sophomore year. The summer of my sophomore year.
Okay, and then you concentrated on baseball after that, or
Baseball and basketball.
baseball and basketball? Was Mr. Bethard on the basketball team too, or?
He joined for 1 year and then just focused on football and baseball because he knew football was his career path that he wanted to take.
Okay, and he played college football, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you all work out together,
Sometimes.
speed and strength training?
Mostly him, but he liked to work out by himself or with his brothers.
Okay, I understand. Now, Mr. Trapani, he was on the football team, wasn't he, or did you know?
Yes, sir.
Okay, he was a captain in his senior year, wasn't he?
I believe so, yes, sir.
In high school, was Mr. Bethard really your best friend, or?
I'd say so.
And you were loyal to him, I'm sure,
Always.
and he was loyal to you.
Always.
So on the evening of the 20th, I think Mr. Bethard goes to your house, and y'all drive over to Mr. McCullough's house. Is that how that worked?
Parents dropped us off.
I'm sorry.
Parents dropped us off.
Okay. And at that party, did you smell any marijuana?
No, sir.
And so about what time did y'all arrive at the McCullough residence?
10 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
10:15.
And had you and Mr. Bethard consumed any alcohol before you arrived at Mr. McCullough's residence?
No, sir.
And did Mr. McCullough provide any alcohol?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And did y'all pick up any alcohol or any beer or anything?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 6-pack, 12-pack, or?
One of those 9-pack Coors Lights.
Okay. Now, I think you testified that you saw Mr. Mosely approach Emma Yoder on the dance floor. Did
Yes,
I
sir.
understand that? Okay. Now, you remember 8 days after the incident, December 29, you're at Battleground Academy in the library with Detective Beavis and Detective Joyce, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you knew that conversation was recorded,
Yes, sir.
and you said nothing about seeing Mr. Mosely approached on the dance floor, correct?
I don't remember.
And I'm going to pass you a series of photos from the Dogwood Bar surveillance camera, second floor stair top camera, starting at 2:46:45 a.m. And I'll let you comment.
You need the overhead, Mr.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, give us just a second to get it, get it up.
Okay, I think you're familiar with that image, aren't you? Or-
It's up, Mr. Clue.
And I think you previously confirmed you're at the top of the table there.
Yes, sir.
You know the table.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Sophie Falver across the table from you.
Yes, sir.
Alpha Bethurham.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Emma Yoder off your right shoulder.
Yes, sir.
And this gentleman here is Wilson McCullough, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put a WM to mark him.
Okay.
Did I get that more or less on Mr. McCullough?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to Mr. McCullough's 145 degrees to the right, you see Mr. Mosely there?
Yes, sir.
If you can't tell, that's up there.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put an MM next to him. Okay. And move forward. 2:46:00 a.m. And you see you're still more or less in the same place.
Yes, sir.
And Emma Yoder has moved down the table, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put an EY for her. And you see Mr. McCullough there.
Yes, sir.
And you see Mr. Mosely here.
Yes, sir.
Put an MM for Mr. Mosely. And they are looking towards Ms. Emma Yoder, correct?
Apparently, yes, sir. I believe so.
All right. Moving on. 2:46:28 a.m. Second floor stair top camera. Ms. Yoder is still more or less in the same place.
Yes, sir.
Wilson McCullough is motioning. See Wilson McCullough there?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Mosely appears to be facing Mr. McCullough.
Yes, sir.
Let's put an MM for there. Two 2:46:44 a.m. Second floor stair top camera. You see Wilson McCullough,
Yes, sir.
and he's leaning in towards Mr. Mosely, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's Ms. Yoder. You see Ms. Yoder there?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna put an EY right behind her head. Next photo, 2:46:51 a.m. Same camera. You're drinking a beer, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the gentleman who handed you that beer is that Campbell Parker there?
I can't really tell, sir. There's a glare on it.
Okay, yeah. Let's see, maybe.
Mr. You slide it down a little bit, that's a little better.
Perfect.
Okay, now can you tell?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that is Campbell Parker?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna put a CP by him. And Wilson McCullough, correct?
Yes, sir.
And over here, you see Mr. Mosely,
I believe so.
and he's got his arm around Ms. Yoder's shoulder.
Yes, sir.
And, I think we established this was you drinking the long neck.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see, I think I got it. Next picture will be from 2:46:54. And you're handing that long neck back to Campbell Parker, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Wilson McCullough again.
Yes, sir.
You tell me if I label something wrong. Next picture from 2:46:56 a.m.
Yes, sir.
And you see Mr. McCullough here,
Yes, sir.
and there you are, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we see Emma over here looking back towards you maybe.
Yes, sir.
EY for Emma Yoder and Michael Mosely. Next picture, 2:47:01 a.m. You see Wilson McCullough,
Yes, sir.
And Campbell Parker.
Yes, sir.
And you're sort of in between them.
Yes, sir.
And you're about to notice Emma Yoder there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Next picture, 2:47:03 a.m. I see you appear to be in motion in that picture, correct?
Yes, sir.
Striding in. Your left leg sort of blurry. And in between you and Emma Yoder is Wilson McCullough.
Yes, sir.
And Wilson McCullough is sort of right next to Michael Mosely and Emma Yoder, correct?
Yes, sir.
Two 2:47:22 a.m. Okay. And that's you on the steps looking, let's see, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Looking back towards Mr. Mosley, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe, is that Emma in front of you?
I can't really. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And Mr. Mosley's back here.
Yes, sir.
He's backed off.
Yes, sir.
And the big tall guy in the back, that's David Bates, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he was wearing a blue Tulane
Hoodie. Yes, sir.
And he was a picture at Tulane, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll roll off of these as our next exhibit.
No, okay, that would be, is it not 34? I have 33 as BFTIB 21.
Oh, I missed that.
Okay. It'll be exhibit number 34, Mr. Courtney.
This was 27 months ago, correct?
I believe so.
And you're a young guy. And not unusual for young guys to drink a lot of beer.
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say you were very intoxicated?
No, sir.
Let me show you a few still photos from the Bar 2 side camera. Well, I'll tell you what, I might have to show you on video. From 2:17 a.m. I apologize, Your Honor.
Do you want us to pull up the video? Are you gonna play the video?
I think that might have to.
Okay.
We could use the video for this. From 2:17:49. Yes. And well, we'll wait here. Okay, you see yourself in that photo?
Yes, sir.
Lower left-hand corner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were in close proximity to another man?
Yes, sir.
2:17:49 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me go forward to, I think, a wider shot of that. Whatever the next one is, Jim. Or, let's see, maybe a closer shot. 2:17:49 closer. Go back to. All right, well, that's good. So about this time, you got into a little shoving match with that man. Do you remember that?
No, sir.
And he grabbed your hat and threw it. Do you remember that?
No, sir.
We're going to play a video which we have marked as DFT ID 5. Begins at 2:17:15 a.m. And watch for yourself. You see you push that man. Okay, he grabs your hat and throws it. Do you remember that now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You normally wouldn't do that if you hadn't had alcohol in you.
That's one of my good friends, Dallas Briggs. So we do that kind of stuff all the time.
So you were pushing and
Yeah, we just mess
push
around.
and shove a lot?
Yeah, we push around for a little bit, and then kind of towards the end, you see us hug like usual.
Okay. And I think we offered that as our next exhibit, didn't we, or didn't we? DFT ID 5?
That'll be number 35.
I think I asked you about the interview on the 29th of December.
Yes, sir, you did.
Okay, all right. And did you remember whether or not you said anything about seeing anyone approach Emma Yoder on the dance floor?
During the interview,
Correct.
I do not recall.
Okay. And if that interview, you said you didn't really remember much at all. Is that correct?
From the interview, no, sir.
One moment, please. Thank you, Mr. Folks.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there anything in redirect?
No, you're right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Folks. Watch your step as you're stepping down.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Folks, take your time, sir. Okay. Is the state ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's next witness is Ari Bektar.
All right, Beth, you all right?
Good morning. Could you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, Ari Soran Bektiar.
And could you spell your first, middle, and last name for the court reporter?
Yes, ARIESORANBEKHTYAR.
And Mr. Bektar, are you from the Nashville area?
Yes, Franklin.
How long, did you grow up here?
Yes, ma'am. Born and raised.
And where did you attend school?
Grassland Middle School and then Franklin High School.
And in 2019, what were you doing then?
I just graduated college and I was living in East Nashville and working at Cap Financial at the time.
And how old are you today?
I'm 25.
Do you remember specifically that night of December 20th into the early morning of December 21st of 2019?
Yes.
And where were you at that night?
So I went out with some friends. We ended up at Dogwood, and I was leaving. And when I was waiting on my Uber, that's when everything happened.
And did you know anyone that was outside of Dogwood that night?
Yes, as I was leaving, I believe I saw Sam and Clay at the time, and then the whole fight and everything broke out. I didn't really know who the fight was between, and then I saw Clay kind of leaving the crowd to the left, and then that's when I went over to him.
And you said that you knew Sam. Is that Sam Folks?
Yes.
And how well did you know him?
His older brother's friends with my older brothers, so we were acquaintances, but not best friends.
And what about you referenced Clay? Is that Clay Bethard?
Yes, same with him. I'm friends with his older brother, and then we have mutual friends as well.
And did you know Paul Trapini?
I did not.
Which I'm going to ask to play you what is previously introduced Exhibit 11, file number 7.
Jenna, will you pause it and then rewind it because the video and
The beginning of it is
Okay.
not relevant.
all right.
Mr. Bektar, are you able to see yourself in that video?
Yes.
And if you can touch the screen and just point to where you are.
I'm leaned up against the railing right there.
And was that Mr. Bethard that just walked past you? Would you like for me to rewind it?
Yeah, if you could rewind it. Yeah, it's him.
And what are you doing at this moment?
I had just called an Uber. The friends I was with, they live in South Nashville, and I live in East Nashville, so they all went home. And so I was just waiting on my Uber at that time.
And the kind of commotion that's going on in front of you, were you able to see exactly what was happening?
I just saw, as you can see, just a bunch of pushing and shoving, and then obviously some punches thrown, but I didn't really know that Clay and Sam were involved until I look out and kind of see Clay towards the left. But I thought they were just pushing each other and fighting. I didn't really know exactly what was about to happen.
And do you remember what's happening right now?
Yeah, as you could see, he was holding his left side, and that's when I went over to him and could see that he had been stabbed.
Was he able to talk?
Yeah, he was talking. He was confused. He was like, "What the heck?" Like, I got stabbed. He was just more confused than anything. So we were trying to, it was me, I don't really know who else was with me. I don't even think I talked to him after, but we were just trying to calm him down. And at that point we were calling 911. But yeah, he was talking, but more than anything, he was just confused.
Did you have any idea that there were weapons involved in anything that you saw?
No, not from the pushing that I saw.
And how well did you know Clay Beathard?
I know his older brother, and I've known him since probably sophomore year of high school through mutual friends. And so whenever I would go over there, I would see Clay. I didn't know him super well, like we weren't best friends, but I mean, every time I saw him, he would ask me how I was doing, ask me about my brothers. And so, I mean, I knew him decently well.
What type of person was he?
He was super kind. That night when I saw him at Dogwood, like inside the bar, he was just asking about my brothers, asking how everything was going. So, I mean, he was just a super genuine guy, very respectful. But yeah.
If I can have just one moment. Mr. Bektar, at the beginning of the video, Sam Folks is near you. Would it help if I pulled it up?
Yeah, if you could pull it up again. Yeah, I think he was right next to me as I...
Which there's a circle that's on Clay Beathard.
Yeah, Sam's in the hat.
Do you recognize him?
Yes.
Do you remember anything being said in this moment? Were you concerned for Sam at all?
No, ma'am.
Did you hear anybody say anything threatening or concerning to you?
Not that I recall, no.
So did you have any expectation about this punching, shoving that happens in front of you?
No, ma'am. I really didn't even know it was between Sam and Clay and whoever else.
And had you known that there was something that involved Sam or Clay, would you have acted differently?
Depends on the context. I mean, definitely knowing what I know now, obviously I wish I would have done something else, but I just don't know.
But if you thought that one of their lives was in danger, would that have
Oh, yes, ma'am.
kind of
Definitely.
startled you? So
Yes, ma'am.
nothing happened that made you concerned or feel like you needed to get involved in any way?
No, ma'am. Not until I saw Clay leaving the crowd to the left, and that's when I went over to him.
And that was after Mr. Beathard had been stabbed.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Porter?
No questions, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Won't you step as you're stepping down, please? Thank you, sir. Take your time. Is the state ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls J.C. Harper.
J.C. Harper.
Good morning, Ms. Harper.
Good morning.
Would you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
My name is J.C. Harper, spelled Jaycieharper.
And Ms. Harper, are you here today because you were subpoenaed?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you want to be here today?
No, ma'am.
Are you only here because you're responding to a subpoena?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Harper, and you speak a little bit softly, so if you could either speak up or move closer to the mic, okay?
That's good. That's good. Right there. Thank you.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Michael Mosely?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Can you tell the jury how you know Mr. Mosely?
I know him through his big brother, Greg Sanders.
How long have you known Michael Mosely?
Now probably approximately about 6 years.
So if it weren't for your friendship with his brother, would you have even known Michael Mosely?
No, ma'am.
How close were you with Mr. Mosley's big brother?
Very close.
Did Mr. Mosley's brother pass away?
Yes, ma'am.
And after he passed away, did you continue your friendship with his younger brother, this defendant, Michael Mosely?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
So you know you are here today to testify about what happened on December 21st, 2019, is that right?
I do.
On that night, did you go out with some friends to a restaurant and a bar?
I did.
Can you tell the jury where that was?
Originally,
Yes.
Copacabana.
Okay. And is that a place where you had gone to on occasion?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you went to Copacabana that night, is that the one that's located in West Nashville?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you went there that night, originally, who did you go there with?
Some coworkers.
Okay. And at that time, were you working at a restaurant with some people, a different restaurant than Copacabana?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And about how long were you at Copacabana that night?
For about four hours around about.
Okay. So at some point, did you meet up with the defendant, Michael Mosely?
Yes, ma'am.
And were there other people in that group?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the jury about the other people in that group?
One of them was Daniel, and the other one I'm still unaware of who he was.
Okay. So there, and when you say Daniel, are you talking about Daniel Sevilla?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you said that there was another one. Can you describe the other person besides yourself, Mr. Mosely, and Mr. Sevilla?
He's just a Hispanic male.
Okay. Did he have any type of thing that made him look unique, which would make you be able to recognize him?
He just had glasses and a tattoo on his face.
Okay. And where was the tattoo on his face?
Not exactly sure on which side, but it was above his eyebrow.
Okay. And do you know what the tattoo was of?
I do not.
Okay. Do you know if it was an image or if it was words?
I never got that close.
Okay. So at what point was it that Mr. Mosely, Mr. Sevilla, and this other person with the face tattoo showed up?
I remember ragging on Michael for being a little late, so it was probably around 10:30, 11, or I'm not sure. It was later than what I had expected him to be there.
And did the man with the face tattoo introduce himself to you?
He did.
And how did he introduce himself to you?
He said his name was Poppy.
Okay. Do you think his name was really Poppy?
I don't.
Did he introduce himself to you in that way, in kind of a flirtatious way?
I'm assuming.
Is that how you took that?
I'm assuming.
Okay. Were you interested in him?
No.
Had you had anything to drink while you were at Copacabana?
Yes, I did.
And how much did you have to drink, and what were you drinking?
I think I had around 4 or 5 rum buckets and about 3 or 4 pineapple upside down shots.
Okay, and what is a rum bucket?
I do not know what they contain, but it's probably about, that big and about that wide.
Okay. And so it has rum in it and something else?
And yeah, a mixture of things, yeah.
Okay. Did you see whether or not Michael Mosely had anything to drink while you were at Copacabana?
I seen him with a Corona.
But were you counting his drinks or anything like that?
I was not.
Do you know how Michael Mosely and Daniel Sevilla knew this person who introduced himself as Poppy?
I don't.
Did you make an assumption of how they knew each other?
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to that sort of speculation.
Okay, you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor, this goes directly to something that a statement that she made when she was interviewed by a detective.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Do you remember giving a statement to Detective Beavis in this case?
I do.
Do you remember from your statement how you believed that Mr. Mosely and Daniel Sevilla knew Poppy?
I didn't know that that was the direct connection in which and how they knew each other. I just knew that that was a topic at hand that night.
That what was a topic at hand?
That
Your Honor, may we approach?
Harper, I'm going to ask you that question again. Do you know how Michael Mosely and Daniel Sevilla knew the person who introduced himself to you as Poppy?
I don't know how they know him originally.
Okay. Do you remember giving a statement to Detective Beavis?
I do.
And what did you tell Detective Beavis?
I had some knowledge of the guy had a substance, I don't know what it was, that he was trying to disperse of.
Okay. And did you say that he was trying to disperse them, or was he trying to sell them?
Sell, I guess.
Okay, so you knew that this person named Poppy joined the group and that he was trying to sell drugs that night. Is that right?
Yes.
By the end of the time that you were at Copacabana, was it just you, Daniel, Poppy, and Michael Mosely in your group?
Before we left,
Yeah, right as you were leaving.
yes.
Did the four of you leave together, in other words?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
And did y'all all travel somewhere?
Yes, we did.
Where did you travel to?
Midtown, but to Dogwood.
Okay, Midtown, Hills area, Nashville.
The goal was downtown.
Okay. And you ended up at the Dogwood Bar.
Yes, ma'am.
When you left Copacabana, who all was in the vehicle that you were in?
To my recollection, it was me, Michael Mosely, and Daniel.
Okay. And the other person named Poppy, did he go in a separate vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
Did y'all meet up together once you got to Dogwood?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the jury whether or not you all went into Dogwood together?
We did.
Had you ever been to that bar before?
I had not.
And is that bar here in Nashville, Davidson County?
It is.
Why did y'all decide to go to that bar?
I'm assuming because none of us had ever been there before, just a change of environment,
Okay.
something different.
And do you remember testifying at the preliminary hearing in this case?
I do.
And do you remember me asking you that same question on that day?
I don't, honestly.
Do you remember giving another answer under oath on another occasion about why you went to Dogwood Bar?
I remember what you're referring to, but I don't think that was why we went there. Like, I don't think that was the whole reason we went. We just wanted to go somewhere different. I mean, that was a factor.
Okay. Do you remember making a statement about Poppy and the reason why you went to Dogwood Bar?
Yeah, I mean,
What did you say?
said that there would be potential buyers. If that's what you're referring to, yes, I said that.
Okay, potential buyers for the drugs he was trying to sell.
Yes.
When you got to Dogwood Bar, did you, Michael Mosely, Daniel, and Poppy go into the bar?
Yes.
What did you do when you got into the bar?
We went and ordered a drink.
Okay. And did y'all mingle around and talk to people who were there?
Yes.
Did you see anybody who was in your group participate in trying to sell drugs?
I seen them with an individual. I'm assuming that may have had something to do with it, but I don't know exactly.
You have a response?
Your Honor, I can direct Ms. Harper to answer with what she saw.
Okay, okay.
Can you tell the jury what you saw that would be that would be consistent with somebody who was selling drugs?
If
No foundation that she understands the basics of selling drugs, Your Honor.
Yeah, you may want to, I'll sustain the objection, rephrase the question.
Well, can you just tell the jury what you saw?
I just saw them mingling with people, they had their phone out.
Okay. And when you say them, who do you mean?
The guy I referred to as Poppy and Michael.
Michael Mosely?
Yes, ma'am.
We're talking to somebody who y'all met at the bar?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you see whether or not they exchanged phone numbers?
They had their phone out. I wasn't a part of the conversation, so I can't testify to something that I'm not aware of.
Okay. And then shortly after that, did you see them leave the bar?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did you see leave the bar?
Poppy, Michael Mosely, and the other guy that they were talking to in the bar.
Okay, and where did they go?
Out the front door of Dogwood and to the left, I believe, down the street.
And why did they leave the bar?
I assumed that they were going to an ATM.
Objection. Move to strike the assumption.
Your Honor, she was a witness who was there. She's testifying from her perception of that night. She could be cross-examined on that, but she has every right to say what her assumption was based on being in the moment at the time in that situation with those people and based on conversations that she had with them.
Right, but I don't think the rules of evidence allow for, I guess, absent what expert witnesses testified based upon their investigation of an issue, I don't think that a lay witness that just can testify as to an assumption absent substantial proof to support it. So I'll sustain the objection and strike the comment.
Did anybody tell you why they were leaving the bar?
No.
Did you see where they went?
I seen them walk down the street. After they were out of my sight, I didn't see where their destination was. No.
When they did that, where were you?
At the top of the balcony at Dogwood Bar.
And who were you with on top of the balcony?
Daniel.
Why were y'all on top of the balcony?
Just to watch.
To watch what?
To see what they were doing.
Okay, and what did you see?
I seen them walk down the street until I couldn't see them any longer.
The direction that they were walking to, was it towards an ATM?
I don't know that there's an ATM there.
Objection. We don't know that she knows where all the local ATMs
That's
are.
what she just testified to. She just said she didn't know.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you remember giving a different answer when Detective Beavis asked you the same question when you gave a statement to Detective Beavis?
I believe I just said that I'm assuming that there was an ATM there, but I don't know.
Objection again to the assumptions and the speculations about what.
I think her comment was in response to what her statement to Detective Beavis was, not what her statement right now. The question was, did she tell Detective Beavis? Her response was she believed she told Detective Beavis that she assumed.
Well, it's still a rehabilitating statement.
Okay, I'll overrule the objection.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
I'm handing you up a transcript of the statement that you gave to Detective Beavis.
Okay.
And I would ask you to turn to page...
Your Honor, may we approach?
Ms. Harper, I'll ask you to turn to page 22 of your statement. And if you could read line 16.
Okay, it says,
Now I will ask you the question again. Where were they going? Where were the defendant, Poppy, and this person that you met at the bar going when they left the bar?
my statement says they tried to go to an ATM.
Okay, how did you know they tried to go to an ATM?
I don't recall exactly why I felt that way. I'm unaware of whether they told me that that's what they were doing or not.
Okay, but that's what you knew from being there on that day, because when you were asked about it, that's the answer you gave, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll ask the question again. Why were you and Daniel Sabia standing on the balcony?
To make sure that they were okay.
So you knew what they were doing.
I had an assumption.
Object, move to strike again, it's a speculative.
I think that's it. She didn't say what her assumption was. She testified that her impression, she had an assumption. I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you.
And what was your assumption?
As to,
What was your assumption? You just said I had an assumption. I said they were there. They were going to do a drug deal, and you said I had an assumption. What did you base your assumption on?
that they were trying to go get money out of the ATM
To do what?
to purchase drugs.
Okay. Did you see them come back to the Dogwood Bar?
Yes.
Did they get held up in coming back into the bar?
Yes.
But were they eventually able to get back in there?
They were.
And what happened after they rejoined you at the Dogwood Bar?
I believe we just hung around for a little bit longer until they started moving people out.
Okay. Did there come a time at the end of the night where you all were going to leave?
Yes.
And just before you were going to leave, did something catch your attention?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what that was?
I heard some commotion at the top of the stairs about Michael's trying to make a conversation with a girl that may or may not have had a boyfriend at the time.
Okay. And so what did you do when you heard that conversation at the top of the stairs?
I ran back up the stairs and I just grabbed Mosley and was like, hey, you know, we didn't come here to do this.
Who did you grab by the hands?
Michael,
Okay. And where was he when you grabbed him by the hands?
at the top of the stairs.
What did you do after you grabbed him by the hands?
I just motioned for the rest of the other party to go down the stairs so it could create a space in between them so the tension would subside.
And you said we're not here to do all that?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything specifically about what was said to Mr. Mosely?
Just that the girl had a boyfriend and that he was upset that Michael had tried to make advances towards her
Okay.
and he was being disrespectful.
So the man was saying that Mr. Mosely was being disrespectful to this young lady.
No, towards him because apparently it was his girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Okay. Can you describe what that person was wearing?
To my recollection, he had a fitted ball cap on that was backwards and he had some type of plaid long sleeve shirt on.
Did you feel like something could have escalated if you didn't intervene?
Naturally,
And is that why you intervened?
yes.
While you were holding on to Michael Mosely, did you say anything to the group that the man in the plaid shirt was in?
I just told them to, if they could, just go on down the steps to diffuse the situation.
Okay. And did they do that?
Yeah.
Were you ever concerned for your safety?
At that time,
Yeah.
no.
How tall are you?
About 5'6",
And can you describe your build for the record?
petite.
Petite. If you were going to go buy an outfit, would you buy a size small?
Yes, ma'am.
And even as small as you are, you weren't threatened by that situation at the top of the stairs?
It had nothing to do with me, so why would I?
Hold on, just for the record, the objection is as to leading, I'll overrule the objection, and we're kind of talking over each other, so I don't need to re-ask the question in general.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did the man in the plaid shirt have a friend group with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And y'all went down the steps at the same time?
Did they all go down the steps at the same time?
Did y'all basically travel down the steps at the same time as that other friend group went down the steps?
Within brief seconds of one another, yes.
Where were Daniel, Sevilla, and the man that you call Poppy as you were going down the steps?
I believe Daniel had already made it all the way down to the bottom of the second staircase, and Poppy was in the middle of the two staircases.
Okay. Did you hear anything being said at that point?
I did.
What did you hear?
I heard people from the BGA group, if you will, just continuing to talk about the situation and motion towards Mr. Mosely, talking about how that he was being disrespectful and repeating the same thing over and over about what had happened about at the top of the steps.
Were you able to get down the steps and to the door that goes out of the Dogwood Bar?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you hear anyone in your group say something at that point?
I believe in my statement I said that it could have been Daniel or Poppy, but I was unaware for sure because I believed that the statement came from behind my back and I did not see whose mouth it came out of, so I can't testify to something I'm unaware of, but I know for a fact it didn't come out of Michael's mouth.
Okay, and what did you hear?
That there was going to be a fight, we're going to fight them, something along those lines.
And you heard that before you went outside?
I'm not exactly sure.
Like right at the door?
Yeah, it was right at the door.
Okay. And you've testified previously that you knew that it wasn't Michael Mosely, but it was either Mr. Sevilla or Poppy.
Well, if you want to look at the statement, I told them that I wasn't exactly sure. But
Okay. Do you still have your statement up there?
yeah.
I'll ask you to look at page 45. If you could read lines 1 through 6 to yourself and refresh your memory as to what you told Detective Beavis.
Okay, yeah, this statement, I believe I watched the audio yesterday morning, and I said in the audio that I wasn't exactly sure, but that isn't included in this statement.
Okay. After refreshing your memory and reading what was transcribed about your statement, what did you say?
I said, I heard someone beside me. I don't know if it was Daniel or the other guy, but he said, no, we're going to fight him.
Okay. And you said, I heard somebody beside me, right?
Yeah.
Did you hear anything else being said at that point?
Before the fight started,
Yes.
well, I heard, I don't know what he said, but the guy in the ball cap said something towards Michael. And
Okay. Did he say something towards Michael or did he say something towards his own friends?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you. Do you remember testifying at the preliminary hearing in this case?
Yes.
Do you remember testifying to something different?
I don't recall.
I'm sorry?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been a while.
I'm going to hand you up a transcript of your preliminary hearing. And I'll ask you to look at page 24.
Okay.
Okay, and if you can read the first paragraph there.
The first paragraph.
The first paragraph on page 24. And I'm sorry, if you could go down to line 21. Start at line 21.
I said, I'm assuming his group of friends, he wasn't, and then
Okay.
I got cut off.
So when you were asked, when he was saying that stuff, who was he saying that to? And in the context of this, it was when Sam Folks was making statements, who was he saying it to?
Yes.
And your answer was?
I'm assuming his group of friends.
Okay, and if you can go on to page 25. You were asked, so he wasn't turning around and directing those comments towards Mr. Mosely. And if you could refresh your memory as to what your answer was there and then answer that question for the jury.
Okay. Yeah, I said, I'm not sure if he turned around or not. He was saying it loud enough to where Mr. Mosely could hear him.
Okay, so Sam Folks was talking to people in his own group, but loud enough where Mr. Mosely could hear him.
That was my assumption, according to page 24.
Okay, and that's according to something that you swore to tell the truth and testified at a previous hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What happened after you heard those comments?
The fight broke out.
Who was the first person who hit somebody?
Michael.
And how long after you were outside did Michael Mosely hit somebody first?
Do you want me to give you a time frame?
Approximately?
I was under the assumption that the whole thing lasted a couple minutes, and it didn't. So I can't tell you how long.
Okay.
It wasn't very long at all.
Okay. So after you saw Michael Mosely throw the first punch, would you say that everything escalated from there?
For sure, yeah.
For sure. Everything escalated from after what Michael Mosely did?
Yeah.
What happened to you just after Michael Mosely hit the man in the plaid shirt?
I don't know if I was pushed or what happened, but my wallet fell on the ground, and I leaned down to pick it up.
Okay. At any time when this was going on, did you see a weapon on the man in the plaid shirt?
I did not.
Did you see any person in the friend group who was with the man in the plaid shirt have a weapon?
I did not.
How many times did you see Michael Mosely hit the man with the plaid shirt?
I only seen the initial punch.
After you dropped some of your personal items, did you pick them up?
Yes, ma'am.
And after you picked them up, what did you do?
I heard Michael. I heard his voice, and I started traveling towards the direction that I thought I had heard it coming from.
Did you get over to where Michael Mosely was?
I did.
And what did you do when you got over there?
I tried to defuse the situation.
Okay. Did you actually get in between Michael Mosely and other people?
I did.
Who made that decision for you to get in between them?
I did.
And when you were in the middle of everything, you were actually facing the people that Michael Mosely was fighting. Is that right?
Yes.
And did you see anybody with a weapon then?
No, I did not.
What did you see Michael Mosely do after you put yourself in that situation?
I mean, nothing.
Okay.
He was behind me.
At some point, did Michael Mosely leave?
He did.
Okay. Was it shortly after you had put yourself into the middle of the situation and tried to diffuse the situation?
Yes, ma'am. We all left.
And as y'all were leaving, did you see anybody with a weapon then?
I did not.
When you were across the street in the middle of the situation, did you see anybody in that friend group with a weapon?
I did not.
Did you know the extent of anybody's injuries at that point?
Absolutely not.
When you walked away, who was walking away with you?
The people that I arrived there with, myself, Daniel, Michael, and Poppy.
Did y'all all get into the same car?
We did not.
Whose car did you get into?
I got into Daniel's car.
And who else got into Daniel's car?
Michael.
And obviously Daniel too?
Oh yeah, Daniel. Yeah.
Okay. And what about Poppy? Where did he go?
He got in the other car.
And at some point, did somebody get out of your car?
Yes.
Who did?
Michael.
And what did he do after he got out of the car you were in?
He got into the car behind us.
Okay. And who was in the car behind y'all?
Poppy.
So he left with Poppy.
I'm assuming.
Okay. And what kind of car was it that Daniel was driving that night?
It was a Nissan Altima.
And what kind of car was Poppy driving that night?
I don't know cars, but it looked similar to the one I was in, but different color.
And what color was that?
It was a darkish color. I never seen it in the daylight, so I don't know what color exactly it is, but it was a dark color car.
Okay. Do you remember saying it was a black car at the preliminary hearing?
I mean, it looked pretty black, yeah. I guess you could say that.
Okay. And the kind of car that you were in was what color?
Red, maroon, something like that.
Do you know where Michael Mosely and Poppy went after that?
I do not.
How close were you to Mr. Mosely when he first hit the man in the plaid shirt?
I was directly behind him, I believe.
And how close to Mr. Mosely were you when you were across the street after you picked up your wallet and you were trying to defuse the situation?
I can't say exactly because he was behind me. I don't know how close he was to me.
And at any point during any of these interactions, did you feel like you needed a knife to protect yourself throughout that whole situation?
I didn't, but I wasn't the one that was being attacked by multiple people.
Okay. You were in the same vicinity right by Mr. Mosely during the whole time, correct?
Yes, but I was never physically assaulted.
And you did not feel like you needed a knife?
No.
Your Honor, those are my questions.
Okay, Mr. Quillen?
Hi, Ms. Harper. My name's Ken Quillen.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Mr. Mosely did not have his own car at the Dogwood, is that correct?
He did not.
So he was dependent on driving with either Daniel Sevilla or the man you refer to as Poppy?
Yes, sir.
And before Mr. Mosely throws that punch, you were not in a position to see whether Mr. Folks shoved Mr. Mosely, were you?
Not that I recall.
Now, you said the fellow in the plaid shirt, let's call him Mr. Folks, with the baseball cap on backwards. You say he carried on loud enough for everybody to hear,
Yes, sir.
and certainly loud enough for Mr. Mosely to hear.
Yes, sir.
And that was the point of it, wasn't it?
I'm assuming.
You said 5'6", is that right?
Around about. Yes, sir.
Okay, and so you're a little taller than Daniel Sevilla, correct?
I am.
And would Mr. Mosely maybe be an inch taller? Do you know, or is he the same height as you?
Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
He's shorter than me.
Okay. And the fella you referred to as Poppy, he may be 2 inches taller than you, do you think? Or is he slightly taller?
Whenever I was even close enough to compare height, we were pretty much eye level.
I wanted to show you a few pictures on the overhead.
Yes, sir.
This is the second floor
Hold on.
R/R.
Give it a second, because it'll probably go out and then come back up. Okay, Mr. Corbin.
You see Daniel Sevilla here,
I do.
and to his right is the fellow you call Poppy,
Yes, sir.
and to the far left there is Michael Mosely.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm going to put an MM above Mr. Mosely. And for the fellow you call Poppy, I'm going to go ahead and put a Sergio. Is that okay? I'm going to call him Sergio for the purposes of this.
That's what you choose to do.
Poppy is Sergio in this picture.
Okay.
And Daniel Sevilla, right?
Yes, sir.
D is for Daniel. And the young woman sitting in the booth there, that's your back, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put a JH to the right of your head. Now, I'm interested in this gentleman right here. Do you remember him?
I don't recall anyone's faces from the other group that night.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see. Michael bought you, let me back to that again. Right at 2:04, Michael buys you the first drink there, is that correct?
I think a gentleman had offered to buy me a drink. I know we were at the bar at one point in time ordering a drink.
Well, let's see. Let me give you one from 2:03:09.
Yeah, that's when we ordered.
Okay, and Michael hands you that first drink?
He does.
So, and you had 7 or 8 at the Copacabana, and you had your first drink at this place at 2:03:09. So that was the 8th or 9th drink. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you went to the Copacabana after work? Is
Yes, I
that
did.
right? So what time did you get to the Copacabana?
Roughly around like 9, between 9 and
o'clock.
10. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna put an MM on Michael's back, Michael Mosely, okay?
Okay.
And a JH to your right. And we have Daniel Sevilla here, correct?
Yes, sir.
put a DS above him. And I'm going to write Sergio to this fellow, otherwise known as Poppy. Does that sound right?
Yes, sir.
And you, at 2:15:38, you start to buy yourself a beer and then or a drink, and this gentleman in the short sleeve shirt, he bought you a drink at that time?
Yeah, that's what I was just referring to. I guess that happened afterwards.
Okay, and this is you right here, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put a JH by you, and I guess that's all we need for that. Now we'll offer this as our next exhibit.
36.
Clarify the exhibit number. Was 36 the video of Sam Foltz?
I had that 35.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This is from the first floor entry camera, 2:47:51 a.m. And you recognize yourself in that photo?
I do.
And this is you right here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to draw an arrow and put JH out here.
Okay.
And are you correctly identified?
Yes, sir.
And at the bottom of the stairs, that's Daniel.
Yes, sir.
Daniel Sevilla. I'm going to put a DS for Daniel. And a JH for you. And ahead of you is Michael Mosely.
Yes.
And an MM for him. Now, if do you remember Michael Mosely followed you out the door? Is that correct? Or do you remember?
No, I know he was in front of me because I tried to keep my eye on him.
Okay. You remember that he was going in front of you? Daniel Sevilla.
Oh, Daniel?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
thought you said Michael.
Oh, yeah.
My mistake. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where the rest of our group was. My eyes were fixed on Michael.
I mean, Daniel's waiting at the bottom of the stairs for you, if I remember correctly. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll offer this as our next exhibit.
Number 37.
Now I'm going to show you a picture from the second floor west patio camera, 48:43 a.m. You remember that?
I do.
And is that you right there?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put a JH. Well, draw a whole line out to the corner. And you know the name of the man in the white hoodie?
I don't.
And is he pointing at you, or is he pointing at somebody else in that picture?
I think he's pointing at, 'cause during what I remember of that conversation at that point, I was asking him if we could just go our separate ways, and he was pointing at Mr. Mosely, and he kept talking about, he was there. I mean, there was a fight. I don't know exactly what he was saying because it was very brief, but he was pointing at Michael. Yes.
Was he shaking his finger? Do you remember that?
I can't say that because I don't. I mean, like I said, it all happened really fast. So, I mean, I do know that he was in reference to Mosely at that time.
Okay. Now, this is, that's Mr. Mosely right there in the lighter colored, two people standing almost shoulder to shoulder or one behind the other.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to put it in him. It's difficult to see. And he's maybe got his, he's almost standing behind the other fellow, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're shoulder to shoulder.
Shoulder to
but
shoulder, okay.
At an angle, yes.
And this man here is the one you refer to as Poppy? Or maybe you can't tell.
I can't tell in that picture. I'm sorry.
All right. Do you remember this man over to the right here? You can barely see his finger pointing out there, hand. Do you remember him?
No, like I had stated before, I don't know who those people are, and to be honest, they all kind of look the same to me, so it'd be hard to tell them apart.
Okay. We'll offer that as the next exhibit.
38.
Ms. Harper, this is from a camera down the street. Take a second and look at it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And looking left to right, is that Michael Mosely on the left?
That appears to be him. Yes.
And to his right in the picture, that would be Poppy or Sergio. Is that correct?
It looks to be what he had on that night. Yeah.
And to the right of Poppy or Sergio is you.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to write Harper for you. And this is left to right. And the tall man, do you recognize him?
I do not.
Okay. And he is a good bit taller than you or Mr. Mosely or?
Oh yeah, they all were.
Yeah. All righty. Next photo from this group. And I recognize this is 27 months ago and everybody's drinking and
Yeah.
such. Now, this picture, can you identify yourself here?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
JH for you. And do you remember anybody pushing you? Shoving you?
I can't say exactly who did it, but I remember being really sore the next day.
Okay. Now this photo, you see yourself in this photo?
I do.
And over to the left, that's Michael Mosely, correct?
Yes, sir.
We'll do an MM for Mr. Mosely. And the fellow in the white, do you remember what he was doing at that time?
My back was turned to him.
In that picture, does Mr. Mosely appear to be facing you?
Towards me, yes.
Yes. All right. Now this, apparently you're in motion in this photo, correct? You're moving to your right?
Yes.
And this is you, correct?
Yes.
I'm gonna mark a JH for you. And at this point, blurry, but that's Michael Mosely going to the ground, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna put an MM and an arrow towards Mr. Mosely. And at this point, do you remember, have you seen this man hit Mr. Mosely?
I did.
And when he hit Mr. Mosely, when this gentleman hit Mr. Mosely was looking at you, correct?
From the previous picture, that's what I would assume.
You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
This is the final picture in this sequence. And Mr. Mosley's on the grass, correct?
Yes.
And that's you right there.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put a JH for you. And there's a gentleman standing over Mr. Mosely, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you don't know his name, do you?
I don't.
And you tried to push him off of Mr. Mosely, didn't you? Keep him from hitting him again?
I did.
Your honor, roll for this is the next. One moment, Your Honor, please. Ms. Harper, when you and Mr. Mosely and Poppy or Sergio were backing up towards the far side of Division Street to the sidewalk, how many people were facing you?
Excuse me, can you repeat that question?
Well, was it 4 or 5 against 2 men, or what? How many men were attacking Mr. Mosely?
It was a number of them. I don't remember exactly the number. I just remember seeing him be attacked with more than one person on him at a time. And then it seemed to me every time I separated a situation, another escalated.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, anything redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Harper, you just talked about people attacking Mr. Mosely,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
defendant. Did you see him attacking other people?
I seen when he hit the first guy.
Okay, you saw him attack Sam Folks when Sam Folks didn't hit him or attack him or do anything at that moment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you know that Michael Mosely is the person that stabbed Clay Beathard, don't you?
I don't know that. I didn't see that.
Okay, so you didn't see every single thing that happened.
I didn't.
But you did see Michael Mosely hit other people in that group besides Sam Folks, correct?
Deleting.
When
Hold on 1 second. You have a response?
Permission to treat as an adverse witness.
I'll allow. Go ahead.
when I seen Michael, he was covered by other people. So there's, I mean, I can't. The only time I physically with my eyes seen Michael assault anyone that night is when he assaulted the first person.
But you know that after Michael Mosely started this fight with Sam Folks, that 2 people died and 1 person almost died, right?
I do.
Okay. And before any of the attacks that Michael Mosely did, you said you were walking down the staircase before anybody had hit anybody, and you knew that you needed to keep an eye on Michael. Is that right?
Your Honor, may we approach?
So when you were walking down the stairs, your focus was completely on Michael Mosely because you just testified you needed to keep an eye on him. Is that right?
Yeah, that was nothing out of the ordinary.
So you frequently felt like you had to keep an eye on Michael Mosely.
Not in the sense of what you're saying. No, I looked out for him.
Okay. Well, in context of what you're testifying about, when you were up at the top of this, or when you were in the middle of the stairs and you heard Sam Folks make a statement, just use words, right?
Yes.
You felt it necessary to run up the stairs and take Michael Mosely's hands and say, "We're not here for this." And you encouraged them to continue to go down the stairs, right?
Yeah, that was for the benefit of both parties. That wasn't to say that Michael was being aggressive.
Okay. But you said you needed to keep your eye on Michael Mosely. You didn't say you were keeping your eye on...
Because that was my friend.
Okay. Okay. But you felt it necessary to go up there and diffuse a situation at the top of the stairs where you asked Michael Mosely to hold back. Is that right?
I mean, he wasn't being aggressive towards anyone at the top of the stairs that I seen. I just heard the situation. I walked up the steps and I separated the two to avoid conflict.
So making sure I understand, you went and diffused a situation between Michael Mosely and somebody else because the other person used words, correct?
Yes.
And then as you were going down the stairs, somebody in your group, not Michael Mosely, but you're not sure who, said, "We're gonna fight." Right?
I thought we were talking about the top of the stairs.
No, I'm asking a different question now.
Okay.
Then you said that you needed to keep an eye on Michael Mosely when you were going down the stairs, correct?
Yeah.
And then once you reached the door,
I kept my eye on him.
sure,
Naturally.
you said you needed to keep your eye on him, right? And then once you reached the door, you heard somebody in your group, you're not exactly sure who it was, wasn't Michael Mosely, it could have been somebody else in your group, either Mr. Sevilla or Poppy, say, "We're gonna fight," right?
Yep.
And then seconds later, Michael Mosely, who was walking arm in arm with Poppy, ended up punching Sam Folks out of the blue, correct?
I wouldn't say out of the blue, but yeah, he punched him.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Watch your step as you're stepping down, please. You can give those transcripts to Ms. Adams.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we've been going for a little over 2 hours, so it's probably a good time to take a short break, let you all stretch your legs, get you some water or something. Now, y'all know my rule. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, it's about 5 or 10 minutes.
And I have a second.